Look, I always find it a really interesting topic when someone says, do apartments make for a great investment or not? And I always find it interesting. My dad's born in 1939, so he's actually pre-baby boomer. My mum's born in 1948, so she's a baby boomer. I'm 75, so Generation X, and my wife is 1980, so she's typically on the cusp of Generation Y. So over the dinner table, we actually have a really interesting conversation about apartments, because if you think about my dad's generation, his idea of the great Australian dream is a quarter-acre block with a detached house surrounded by a garden with a hills hoist and a barbecue. But if you think about Generation Y, they've grown up watching How I Met Your Mother, Seinfeld, all of these apartment shows, typically in New York, where apartments are considered really, really normal. And for Gen Y and affordability, they find apartments totally okay as not only a place to invest, but a place to live as well. So who's actually right? And I guess no one's really right, other than we need to understand what makes for a great apartment versus what makes for a sort of a mediocre apartment. And in my view, it comes down to the argument of, should I buy a new apartment or should I buy one that's existing, that's established, it's been around for a while? And in my view, I prefer to buy the established ones, typically something that was built in the 70s or maybe even back to the 50s, where they're a bit older and they look a bit more tired, but they're in better positions and they're located surrounded by beautiful, maybe period homes either side of them, and they're walking distance to lifestyle amenities, which makes them a really great lifestyle option, but not necessarily have the sizzle of buying something new. Versus the new, which has got all the glossy brochures, the developer puts a lot of effort into attracting the attention. Maybe they put a pool in, they got a caretaker, they got a lift, perhaps a gym. These facilities all sound really great. But at the end of the day, as you an investor, you're never going to use those facilities. It's going to be up to your tenant. And in my experience, if the size of the block is too large and it doesn't feel very intimate, a lot of the tenants don't use those facilities anyway. So you, as the property investor, are paying for the upkeep of them through your body corporate fees, but quite often they're a bit of a ghost town in some of these areas. So I guess my view is really simple. I would prefer to have a larger percentage of the purchase price going towards the land value than towards the building. So I can get that when I buy established, because I might be buying one of 8 or one of 12. So if I'm buying a $500,000 apartment, a large percentage of that $500,000 is going towards the land value that I'm buying. Now I acknowledge that I can't point out and say that bit of land is mine, but I do know 1/8 or 1/12 of the land is actually mine. Versus if I buy one of 200 or one of 300, again for 500,000, a much smaller percentage of the purchase price is actually going towards the land value, and a much larger percentage of the purchase price is going towards the building. So that's kind of the ratio that I'm looking to avoid, and one of the reasons why I prefer established over new. The other reason I like established is because I can actually backtest and see what's sold previously to get an idea of the performance of the asset. Versus if I'm buying something brand new, typically there's no history whatsoever in relation to that investment. So you're doing a little bit of crystal balling on that. So in my view, when faced with new versus established, generally speaking, I prefer to buy an established property. The second thing is, quite often I prefer to be on a side street versus a main road, because I've actually done some analysis and looked at a whole bunch of apartments and the performance that they get on a main road versus a side street. And it's really interesting. Most of the time, high 90%, the side street performs better than the busy road. And it kind of makes sense because people place more emotional value on being more private and off a side street than they do being on a busy road. And I guess that's important because new often is on the busy road, whereas the established is built 30, 40, 50 years ago, and they already have good positions in great locations surrounded by beautiful houses, which can help drive the price. So again, I prefer to be in a side street versus the busy road. I guess the other thing to think about is size versus shine. And by that I mean sometimes some of the older apartments, because the developer wasn't under so much pressure to get a financial outcome out of it, they could make the internal sizes a bit bigger, the living room's just a bit bigger, the bedrooms are sometimes just a bit bigger, versus the newer ones, because they need the economics to work to get the bank to lend them the money, quite often they just shrink the sizes until they find the sweet spot where they can actually make a profit. So, but the brand new one looks shiny. New taps, new carpet, everyone gets excited about that. They often sell it on depreciation as well. So I love depreciation as much as the next person, but I'd rather do that through a small renovation, which can help us get that, which kind of moves on to my next point of the ugly duckling versus the beautiful swan. And again, I'd prefer to buy something that's a bit older that I can do my own improvements to so that I can create the depreciation that comes from that cosmetic renovation versus buying something that the developer's done for me that I have to pay additional amount to get and not be in the side street and not have that established property. So I guess the argument is, are all apartments great investments? And I would say probably not. I think there's only a small percentage of apartments that actually do make for a great investment. But in terms of deciding which one you would like to choose, think through the eyes of the person who is most important to you as an investor. So if you're a buy and hold strategy, the most important person is the valuer. And if you're a buy and sell strategy, the most important person is the next buyer, typically or hopefully the owner-occupier. So if you walk through the property as you're viewing it before you buy, through the eyes of either one of those two important individuals, and think about whether they would see owner-occupier appeal, whether they would see it's off a busy road, whether they see there's some privacy and some intimacy that comes from being one of 12 rather than one of 200 or 300. If they would place a huge value on that, chances are that will make for a great investment for you, and chances are that'll help you in the filtering process as to which apartment you should actually buy. So my conclusion is simple. Not all apartments make for a great investment, and I think you need to exercise a lot of caution when deciding which one is for you. But if you think about the fact that they need to have some owner-occupier appeal, they need to be investment grade and have some form of scarcity, using those three filters alone will help you make a better decision when it comes time to deciding whether or not an apartment makes for a great investment for you.